Alright then guys, welcome to the Real Pod. Hi guys, welcome to another special edition episode of the Real Pod. Our guest today, where do I start? So, a tragic event took place 14 years ago in their lives, which led them to then fight and create a safe environment for children in Ghana by setting up a foundation, the Koby Foundation. We'd like to introduce and welcome Marie and Emily to the podcast. Welcome, guys.
Hello.
And thank you for taking the time and coming to see us and coming to speak to us. So, if I may, Marie, what is the Koby Foundation? If you'd like to share that with us and our viewers.
Okay, the Koby Foundation primarily is a charity that feeds very undernourished children in Amasaman, in Greater Accra, West Africa. The children that we feed come from desperately poor homes, no sanitation, no running water. Often they don't have anything to eat that day, and so we feed children and give them nourishing meals to build them up.
Can I ask why did you go about doing this? Because obviously you're UK based. The charity or the foundation is in Ghana. Where did the two, I think this was Emily, yourself, if I can,
that was
where did
me.
the two meet as such?
Yeah,
Or how
so
did you come about?
for me, ever since being a little girl, I always just had this passion to go and work abroad. I used to see the adverts of, children in need in Africa, and I always told Mum and Dad that I wanted to go and do something out there. I didn't know what. I didn't know in which country. And when I turned 18, I started looking for a charity, and I found Ghana. And I don't know why, but I just felt that's the place I'm going to go to. And so I packed my bags and went with an organisation. And when I got to the orphanage, I discovered there was 72 children in 4 bedrooms, from 2-day-old baby to an 18-year-old.
Wow.
And obviously there was lots of different things going on, as you can imagine, of those children at those ages. And I also discovered there wasn't enough people taking care of them. The children were malnourished. There wasn't any doctors seeing these children. The education was quite poor, and not enough food for all those children. So I started ringing back home to my mum and dad, and telling them what I'd seen in this orphanage. How could this be? I was 18, I didn't understand, but I became good friends with the manager and just trying to find out what was actually happening. I saw lots of donations being given to the children, but then the children would never get them, so churches would come and donate, and then at the end of the service they would all get locked away, and I'd go back the next day and there was new mattresses and food, but then there seemed to be nothing there the next day. And then I started recording bits because, I saw there was a school on the compound of the orphanage as well. So the children that were in the orphanage would go to the school, and I would see teachers asleep and not teaching the children, no books, no exercise books, no pencils. Yeah, they were all, I'd seen the cupboard where they were full of pencils and crayons and things, and I'm thinking, why aren't these getting to these children? And but I didn't say anything. I don't know why I didn't say anything. I just observed for quite a while, and I was ringing back home, and so yeah, I had to raise a lot of money to go. And
How long had you been there while you were ringing back and letting your mum know or parents? How long had you been there now, watching this things coming and sort of disappearing overnight? How long had you been there?
So I noticed there was a few things that weren't right within the first 3 days of me being there, and so I questioned the organisation that I'd gone with. I had to raise £2,500 to go, and that wasn't including my flight. And they said that they had that money then to help the orphanage. But I couldn't understand where the money was going, because to me there shouldn't be 75 children in 4 bedrooms. There should be food for those children. And, I was also in a tent. When I got there from the airport, I was put in a tent to sleep in. Now, I knew I was going to rough it. It was Africa, But again, how can I be sleeping in a tent when I've paid all this money, but then the money isn't going to the orphanage as well? So I phoned Mum and Dad, and Mum and Dad at the time had met some friends in their church who lived in Accra, in Ghana. They just found this out, so there was no links before. And Joseph, Mum and Dad's friend, was Ghanaian, and he was in Ghana at the time, and he actually came and saw me and found appropriate accommodation, because I decided I didn't want to leave the organisation. I wanted to carry on working in the orphanage. I felt I needed to be there, but I wanted to get the money back from the organisation so then I could spend it where I felt it needed to go. They had 3 babies there, and the babies weren't even having milk. They weren't with their mothers, so they weren't being breastfed. And again, this is why they were so malnourished. So Joseph was very good to me and helped me move accommodation. And, I did complain to the organisation that I'd gone with, and I managed to get my money back. And then I started to go shopping in Ghana and buy lots of milk for the babies. I bought mattresses. I bought things that I thought were essential for those children at the time.
Yeah.
And then I did the same. I wrote the orphanage's name on there, on like mattresses and things, in hope that they wouldn't go missing. And then the next day I'd go back again, and they'd gone. There was milk that, the milk was always there for the babies, but there was other things that I had bought for the orphanage that, just didn't seem right. Where were these things going to? And so I started calling back home, quite worried at what I was finding, and then started speaking to the manager of the home, who was Salah. And she started telling me how she was trying to feed these children on just like a small bag of rice every day, or not even that, and she was trying to stretch it. And she told me that there was a local lady who was a bit of a celebrity in Ghana, and it seemed to me that she was using the orphanage as a front. She was a well-known lady, and she was adopting all these children, and it looked like she was doing a wonderful thing. But actually, the children were coming to great harm because of everything that was going on in the orphanage. Children weren't being adopted. To say that it was an orphanage, you would think then they would be able to be adopted, or have a much better life, or if they were orphans, they would have a better life. And that didn't seem to be happening. Anyway, Salah and I became quite close, and I said, there was one little boy who was 18 months old, and he was so severely malnourished, he couldn't walk, he couldn't talk. And I said to Salah, I need to take him to the hospital. And she allowed me to do that. And so we would go to the hospital, and the doctors then started to question, who are you?
Yeah, of course.
And I started to tell him about the children back at the orphanage, and then they obviously was quite concerned. And then I'd bring another child and another child, and then obviously they were asking questions themselves. But because I had like the support of the doctors as well, that helped. But Koby, I started giving him milk, and I started to bond with him, and I sort of became like his mother, and I gave him a lot of love. And that was something I saw in the orphanage. Children weren't loved only by the volunteers that would come. And Koby was starting to pick up, and he would start to smile and engage with me. And again, I was ringing back home saying, you know, I really want to adopt this little boy. And I couldn't believe it at 18 that you could have a bond with a child that wasn't yours. I'd never had my own child at this point. But I did, I loved him. And there was another little boy, Adam, who was also Koby's age. And he was the same. And he was full of personality, wasn't he, Adam? Mm-hmm. And my heart was just, I needed to help these children. And with Mum and Dad's support.
So Emily, she kept ringing home and saying about the babies, and I said, well, you know, they all need milk. All these babies need milk, and the little ones as well. So she put them on a feeding program, so that we actually had a feeding chart, and so the babies were beginning to be more nourished, but because we're a close family, Emily said, why don't you come out? And so my husband Roger and myself, we went out to see Emily, and we went to the orphanage. I think when we arrived it was the evening time, and I can remember going, and it was dark and there was hardly any lights anywhere, and the smell, there was just this awful smell. And when we looked around the place in the day, I was absolutely appalled at what I saw. And it was just a desperate, desperate place. And but while we were there, Emily might like to say to carry on now, but a little boy called Koby died, the little one that she was trying to nourish and love, and desperately wanted to see him walking and make his life better. So Emily will carry on now.
So there was one time that...
Do you want me to carry on?
Take your time.
It's trying to get it all to make sense, and obviously...
Yeah.
Do you want me to say? When we arrived, Koby was already in the hospital.
Yeah.
It didn't happen while we were there, but what happened was, it's difficult for Emily to say. She wasn't on duty that day, and a lady who used to look after the little ones in the nursery, she was just a very poor lady from a village. We don't hold any blame to her, but she'd seen Emily bath Koby and Adam, and what had happened was they'd both been circumcised, and because the orphanage was so dirty, their wounds had got infected. And so Emily had taken them to the doctors and got them antibiotics, and she would bath them every day for them, you know, for the wounds to heal. And while Emily was off duty that day, I think it was a Saturday, the mother who used to look after the children in the nursery, she filled a bath with boiling hot water, put Adam in, but because Adam was strong and he jumped out the bath and his feet were scalded. I don't know what happened to the volunteers in the room. I don't know what they saw, but and then she put Koby in, and because he couldn't walk and he was so weak, she sat him in the scalding hot water. And I think, if I remember rightly, one of the volunteers said that they saw, was it his skin floating in the water? It was just horrific. And he was taken to the hospital, and that was the first time that I saw him. And I can remember holding him in my arms and just looking at his little face and the desperation in his face. It was a beautiful, beautiful little boy. And the hospital was appalling, and there was just rags on the beds. The bed next door to Koby, there was only 3 wheels on the bed, so the poor little girl in the bed, it was sort of half on the floor. It was just a horrific place. And the lady of the orphanage, as punishment for putting Koby in for scolding Koby, she was told that she had to look after him in the hospital. Again, we don't put any blame on her, but I think, was it the next day, Emily, or for a couple of days afterwards, we had to go and buy all his bandages, everything that he needed. We went and bought. And then one morning we had a phone call, didn't we? And we found out that he'd died. And he didn't die from his injuries. His wounds would have healed. It wasn't that. They said when we went to the hospital to find out what had happened, they said that he'd had a heart attack. And I've thought about it so many times afterwards. I don't believe that they even tried to resuscitate him. Whether it was a heart attack, we'll never know. And we were all there, Emily, Roger and myself. And one of the nurses said to Emily, "Why are you crying?" She said, "I'm crying because we've lost Koby, a little boy that I love." And she couldn't, you could tell by the look on her face, she didn't understand why we should care about this little boy. And we found out afterwards that after he'd died, he'd just been placed outside the mortuary door. Someone had to come and pay for him to be put inside. And I'll never forget about hearing that. It was like he was just a wild animal placed outside the door. There was no thought of the value of this little life. And it was just all horrific. Anyway, we said, "Can we see him?" And so we went down to the mortuary, and Roger said, "I will go inside. I'll find out, if it's possible." So he went inside and came out, and he said, "I don't want you to go in there." And to this day, Roger has never said what he found in there. We don't know if he was just laid anywhere. And Roger's never said, and he won't talk about it. And it was horrific, and nobody cared, did they, Emily? No. Nobody cared. His life was of no importance.
Yeah, it was just definitely not an experience that you expect to go and see. Africa can be bad, but and desperately poor, but it was just the fact that there was nobody did care, did they? No. Nobody cared for those children. No. Why were they all in there? Some of them had parents, some of them didn't need to be in the orphanage. It was very much used for people to... Why was it used? It was a front. It was for money.
It's just convenient for some people, I suppose.
Yeah,
to make money.
It was it was to make money. It was people would donate money. People would give donations, and it never went to the children. And it was those children that suffered. And it was it was horrific. I
can remember the school one day. The school children were in the classroom, and they were giving out the lunch to the school children. And on one particular meal, there was a big piece of fish. And I said, "Well, who's that for?" They said, "Oh, it's for the headmaster." And I thought at the time, what about the children? I couldn't believe what they were doing. So.
And obviously we're not saying the whole of Ghana is like that.
Of course, yeah.
It was the orphanage that we visited. And it was something that, we didn't expect to experience. I thought I was going to Ghana, take some nice pictures, hold hands, sing songs, teach them English, and then come back. And that was it. I would have thought I'd done my part. But having seen what I saw and Koby dying, I'd never had anybody close to me die. So for a baby to die, it was just something, one, I never thought I'd experience, and two, how do you get over that? And when Mum and Dad were there, Mum flew back to England, didn't you? And Dad stayed back with me, and we it came to the day of burying Koby, and we went and fetched him for the mortuary, and I made sure that he had
she'd made him we've got the photograph, so she'd made him a little bed in his little wooden box. It wasn't even a proper coffin, it was just a little wooden box. But she'd made it up nicely with all really nice blankets, and she'd put his favourite T-shirt on and made it really nice for him. And I had to go home to England to look after my other children, so I couldn't stay. But you and Dad, you went to the place where he was going to be buried, and it was just a rubbish tip. I saw it afterwards, and you couldn't believe that they were going to bury a little one there. But it wasn't just that, they hadn't even dug the grave properly. It wasn't deep enough, and so Roger made them dig the grave deeper, and nobody was very happy about it at the time. Roger did a little service and prayed and gave a little word, and at the time, we'd been to a graduation. A friend of ours had been called to the bar, and we were invited to go along to the presentation. And while we were there, Roger was given a little flag, a little Ghanaian flag. And after Koby had been Roger put him in the ground, he took his flag off, and he just let it dropped down onto the coffin, and it dropped right into the middle. And he just felt a scripture came to him. Can you read it, Emily? My eyes aren't very good.
And the scripture was, unless a kernel of wheat is planted in the soil and dies, it remains alone, but its death will produce many kernels of... Hang on, I can't.
Yeah, take your time.
Can I do that again?
Yeah, go for it, no problem.
And it said, unless a kernel of wheat is planted in the soil and dies, it remains alone, but its death will produce many new kernels, a plentiful harvest of new lives.
And this is what has come to pass with the Koby Foundation, but it's quite a long story. But after Emily and Roger went home, Emily and I, we kept going back to Ghana. We just wanted to do something. We didn't know what we could do. And we tried to get justice for Koby. And we were sat in the prosecutor's office one day, and there was piles and piles of paperwork on the floor, and there was a television on the desk. And when we went in, I said to the prosecutor, I said, can you turn the television off? We've come to talk about the death of a little boy. And all he did was switch it down. And I knew that day that we wouldn't get justice for Koby. We'd been to the police station, we'd done lots of statements about the situation, but we were just getting nowhere. But I'm not quite sure of the timing, but we went to social welfare in Accra, and we wanted to report the case, and we were very, very surprised. They were having a meeting that day, and they sat and listened to us, and we just told the whole horrific story, and they believed us. And after that, they set about closing the home down, and they sent in rice and food for the children. They went, didn't they, and saw the situation and how bad it was. And I think after that day, 46 homes were closed down in Ghana because they looked into the state of the homes. But Emily and I, at that time, we had to stay in a hotel. And after we'd reported what was happening in the orphanage, we went back to the hotel that night. We were frightened because the lady who owned the orphanage, obviously it was going to be closed down, so she wasn't going to get any more money. But we were afraid. You know, she was on the radio, she was very, very well known, and we wouldn't have been surprised if somebody had come and shot us. That's how afraid we were. But we knew we'd done the right thing. So after that, Emily, went to university in Nottingham, and I still couldn't forget what had happened in Ghana, so I kept going back and going back. But in the meanwhile, we'd said to Salah, if you stand for justice for Koby, we'll support you. And so that's what we did. We looked after her. And she, after a while, we said, Salah, you really need to perhaps, you know, we don't mind supporting you, but it'd be good if you get a job. What could you do? Anyway, she went on an IT course and different things. And she went into hiding for 2 years. She was so afraid of what had happened because she knew that the lady who owned the orphanage, she would get a backlash from it. And so she hid herself for 2 years. But eventually she said, I'd like to do the African printing. So we said, okay, what do you need? She said, well, if I could get a little room I could do with like a big yard, obviously to dry the material. And so that's what she did. She found this place, but she wasn't particularly brilliant at it. And I thought, oh, Salah, you're not going to be able to keep yourself. It's not really good enough to sell at a good price. But anyway, Salah had got a kind heart, and she was probably one of the only ones in the orphanage that the children did love her, and she did her best for them. It wasn't her fault that she didn't have the tools that she needed to make a better life for the children. But she'd started to feed 2 children next door. The little girl was 5 and her brother was 14, and the mother had gone up into, it was either the eastern or northern region of Ghana to work. And that was quite common, actually. And so Salah, she'd left food for the children, but it soon ran out. So Salah was feeding the children. And then she said to me, oh, Mary across the road has lost her husband, and can you help her? And she's got all these children. So we went out and we bought food for Mary. And then a little way, not far away, she said, there's Agnes, and desperately poor situation. And so we went and bought food for Agnes and her family. And then one day I was just in the yard and I thought, I said to Salah, why don't we feed the poorest of the poor in Amasaman, those children that don't get food regularly, some days they don't have anything to eat, why don't we feed those children? And so I think on the first, and I said, well, maybe if we start feeding them, feed the children every Wednesday and every Saturday. Let's see how that goes. I think the first day we started, the first Saturday, we fed 26 children. And it was just, things were happening. It was like everything that happened with Koby, his death wasn't in vain. I just knew that scripture that Roger got on that day, it had come to pass, that lives were going to be changed. And I knew where Koby had gone. I believe in heaven. I knew that he'd gone to be with Jesus. I was happy for him that he wouldn't have the suffering of this world. He was free from all of that. But his little life wasn't in vain. It was going to be something I didn't want ever to forget him, and that's why we call the charity the Koby Foundation. I always wanted his we didn't ever want him to be forgotten, did we, Emily? No. You know, he was a very special little boy. Obviously I only held him in my arms that day, but it did something to me. I'm a mother. And
if I can ask somebody, where did you know where to go with this from the tragic incident that happened? Obviously you knew you wanted to do something. How did you know where to start from Was it the case of when you started feeding these little families here and
Yes,
there?
it was
through
that
Salah,
day.
the idea
Yeah, it was
born?
that day in the yard.
Okay.
And mentioned to Salah, because obviously it was going to be on her. I mean, I go to Ghana every 7 weeks, but she's there all the time.
You have missed something out though.
Yeah.
Because when Koby passed away is when I came home, and I was supposed to be in Ghana for 3 months, and after Koby passed, it was after 2 months I came home, and I think I was just trying to process what had happened. Again, it wasn't the experience I'd hoped for. But then because what I'd witnessed and what I had seen, I just had this desire in my heart that I couldn't turn my back on those children, and we couldn't have another Koby and have what happened to him happen again. And so that's when Mum and we started going back to Ghana, because we knew we had to uncover what was going on in this orphanage, because otherwise more children would die. And we started reporting it to the social welfare, which is like the social services in Ghana, to like it is here. And it was quite surprising they were listening, and that's when obviously more homes got shut down. And then they asked for us to help them, and we actually started looking for other orphanages and children's homes that were nice. Adequate, yeah, that's right. Because we had 74 children that we now needed to rehome. Some of them, like I said, did have parents, so didn't need to be in an orphanage. So those children obviously went back to live with their families. And we came across Kinder Paradise, didn't we?
Yeah, before that we went to Mother Teresa's, one of her orphanages. Lovely place, very peaceful, wasn't it? But it was filled with adults and children with AIDS and or they were HIV, and we just knew it wasn't the place for children that weren't poorly. Yeah. So we had to forget about that one. But yeah, we went to a place in Pram called Kinder Paradise, run by 2 German ladies. Zilke, he was the founder of the children's home there, and Heike, who's a doctor. And we were just walking around and we met Zilke, and we said, we're trying to rehome some children from an orphanage in Adenta. And she said, "You're doing what?" in a very German way. And I laugh about it now because it must have sounded really, really strange to her. And she's one of my best friends in Ghana. She and Heike are amazing women who've worked tirelessly for 20 years, and Kinder Paradise is a wonderful place. But she ended up taking, how many? Was it about 26 children?
Yeah.
She took 26 children, around that number. And
who have now gone on to be adopted in America, all over really, haven't they? And so, yeah, a nice story to it is that, children were adopted who didn't have parents, who have now gone on to university, who play instruments.
One boy, he's gone on to, he's in university studying music, and he was at the old orphanage, and to see him now, it's amazing, isn't it, Emily? The way he's come on. All he needed was an opportunity.
Yeah.
Like we all need an opportunity, don't we? And you never know. I always say I always think about the children in Ghana and think there could be a Nelson Mandela amongst them, a future president of Ghana. They just need that opportunity.
Yeah.
And so from there, from feeding these kids initially with Salah, you set the grounds up. So now, I don't know, is there a lot of formality involved? Did you have to go to government departments to say we're going to open this? Have we got, planning or permission or?
Yeah, not at the time.
Okay.
We just started doing it.
I don't think you realised it was going to grow into a charity, did it at first?
Yeah, I suppose it's just something you were doing because you wanted to do it.
Yeah,
at
I
that
mean
stage.
now we're registered with the Charity Commission in England, and we're also registered with social welfare in Ghana. So, but at that point, no, we were just inviting children to come along and to have some nice food to eat, have a nice time, to play, and but it just grew and grew and grew. And we
At what stage did you realise that, hang on, this has gone beyond just feeding 2-3 kids, for example, or 5 or 10 kids? At what stage did you think, right, we need to start putting certain things in place, or systems, if you like?
Yeah, after a while, I can't remember how long, but I thought, well, we really do need to get registered as a charity. This is really growing, and I can't remember how long we were in the rented place, but we soon outgrew it. And during COVID, it was just before COVID actually. We bought a piece of land. I did negotiations with the African chief's son in a car park. And
when you say African chief, this is the tribal chiefs.
Yeah, the African chief, they're quite powerful actually in Ghana. I always think they're more powerful than the president, but yes,
they are in their own way. You're right.
Yeah, he owned this land, and so his son was representing him, and I met him in a car park, and I was very, very nervous about the whole thing. It isn't the way we do business, and then I had to part with some money with fear and trembling. I thought, what have I done? And but anyway, it all went by Ghanaian standards very, very smoothly, because in Ghana you can buy a piece of land and it can be sold up to 9 times and you never know who owns it. It's a huge problem. But fortunately, everything went really, really well, and we managed to buy this piece of land. And then Salah said, there's an extra piece, shall we buy that? And so we bought that. And I'm quite fortunate because I'm a director of a care business, and so they support me. And so I was able to purchase this piece of land. But it was during COVID that we started the building, and Salah would go down at 4:30 in the morning, and she would stay there all day until it got dark, because she had to count every brick, every bag of cement, every bag of sand.
So nothing had disappeared.
Because we didn't want anything to disappear, and I'm not blaming people. I'm afraid it's poverty. Yeah, but we had it was amazing how it was built. We still look at the building now and I think, how have we managed to do this? And one day there was a ladder going up to the roof, and she thought, why is that ladder up there? So she's not afraid of heights. So off she went up the ladder, and they'd hidden I think it was some steel rods on the roof, so to be taken down later. But she was amazing the way she project managed it. Well, we did it together. And
she was your eyes and ears there while you'd come back here.
Yeah. Sometimes I had to choose windows and doors just on my phone, or she'd FaceTime me and she'd show me different things. And because I was in England, because obviously for a while I couldn't travel, because the airport was shut, and so we still managed to communicate, and we bought everything, and we got to roof height, and I thought, oh dear, this is going to be quite expensive to put the roof on, because it was a huge building. We couldn't believe how big it was, and we had a donation of £5,000, and from a lady that I've probably only ever met a couple of times in my life. It was completely unexpected to receive this gift, and it put the roof on. And when you look at the building, I chose everything, the tiles, the roof, everything. Well, we chose together.
I can imagine it being very personal to you, this.
Yes. And I always said, all the time, this children's centre is not for me, it's for the children. It's all about the children. And then I had another £5,000 donation, and from a completely unexpected source. and that put all the windows and the doors in. And I can't even remember how much the whole thing cost us, but it was amazing how it all came together. We don't owe a penny on it. We've no mortgage on it. I'm a Christian, and so I know that Jesus helped me with everything. I never asked for anything, but the money always came in. And even now, we have about 250 children that we support, and I never worry about feeding the children. The money always comes in, and but after we started feeding the children, at the time there was no free education. And so we had to pay privately for the children to go to school, which we did probably for a couple of years. But then the government brought in free education. So now we just buy everything that they need for school, the textbooks, the writing books, everything that they need, the rucksack, the school uniform. Koby Foundation provides all of that. And we support children in 2 villages, Dublow and Cotonsi, desperately poor children there. And it's just, people say it's a wonderful thing that you do. I say, well, no, not really. What it gives me as a person, it makes my life worthwhile. There's nothing better than giving. It's far better to give than to receive. And just the joy of being able to put food in children's mouths. But I was there just a couple of weeks ago, and I looked at the children, and even though some of the children now are fed 3 times a day, the school children, they have their lunch provided by us every day. We have a lady that cooks for them, and she takes I think we've got about 60 in the local school, so she takes their lunch to them every day, and our lunches are an envy to the teachers and the children there, because what we give our children is much nicer than what the school provides.
Oh, brilliant.
But even still, even though we're doing what we do and feeding as many children as we can, I look at them still and look at the little arms and the little legs, and my heart goes out to them, because they still don't have the nourishment that we do. What I would really like to do is to set up more feeding stations in some of the villages, more of the villages, but it's manpower, I'm afraid, at the moment that we need. I need Ghanaians desperately to come and to help with the children, because that's really the biggest problem at the moment. It's manpower. You know, I can provide the food. That's not a problem. We, as the children come in, as we take new children in, we get them into school. It really has changed their lives. I mean, it's just given them all hope. And when they leave school, we get them on courses. We've got children doing dressmaking courses, and one of our children has just done was it electrical engineering at a school, so we supported him for 3 years. And so as every child leaves secondary school, we don't say that's it, go your way. We carry on, and we will get that. Every child deserves the opportunity to be able to support themselves throughout their lives. And
do you have certain big feed days, if you like open days? So you'll have your children, ultimately the ones who stay there at the foundation and you support, but then do you not have open days where other people can come? You have big feed days, is it?
Yeah, well, we have 2 big feeding days, every Wednesday and every Saturday.
Okay, yeah.
But obviously we have a few children that live at the centre. Mm-hmm. But some children are fed 3 times a day. All depends on need,
How many people could you be feeding your children that day on a Wednesday or a Saturday? Up to, would you say?
Well, it's over it's 100 plus on a Saturday and
Wow.
the same on a Wednesday, but we also feed the children in the village. We've got
Yes.
100 in Kotunsi. We buy everything that they need for school, textbooks, everything, because all the children that we support there, they didn't have anything to write on. We've even had to buy desks for them to sit at because they were sat on the floor. And so whatever the need is, we do our best to provide whatever they need. But there's 250 children, but there might be a few more now actually, because we still keep taking children in even though we desperately need more help. We've managed to get a couple more ladies to come and
Brilliant.
to come and help on a Saturday. You know,
You've introduced sit-ins as well, haven't you?
sittings.
Yeah, because we can't have that many all at once.
No, like the children that we couldn't have all Kotunsi's children with ours. So what we do is we take the food to the village and it's given out there. So
Wow. So it's not just a little operation, if you like. You know, you put it. You're trying to reach as far as you can ultimately,
Yeah.
and it seems to be spreading the tentacles from the actual Koby Foundation on the ground to then the next village, and whoever else walks in, sort of don't turn them away empty-handed.
That's right, yeah.
yeah, it always used to feel to me like a drop in a bucket. All the help that we gave, now it feels like a drop in the ocean. The need is so great because the poor in Ghana, some of the children that we help, they'll never put their heads on a pillow at night. They'll never lay in a nice bed. They'll never have running water. And whenever I get into my bed at night, I always think about the children in Ghana because they'll never have what I have. Hopefully some of them make it. And we always say, if you do well in life, don't forget the help that you've given. You help somebody else.
Yeah.
And also as well, we've got like an open door policy. Any child can come and knock any time of the day and say, I'm hungry, and they'll be fed, you know.
Amazing. And when are you due to go back? I know you went not long ago. Is it
Yes.
every 7 weeks? You go for 7 days?
Yeah, sometimes longer, 10 days or 2 weeks. It just depends on what we have to do. But we've got our 10th anniversary of Koby Foundation in June. So we're very excited about that. We're in full preparations and we'll have singing and dancing and wonderful food to eat. And it's going to be just the official opening, even though we've been open for 2 or 3 years now.
Yes.
We've never had an official opening because of COVID. Everything kind of got put back. We were using the centre, but we're not officially open. So we're going to make a great big celebration out of that. And the kids are so excited. We're excited as well. And we've kind of thought one of the children should cut the ribbon. Stephen, he was one of the first children that we started to feed, and he's 23 years of age now, and he's still in school because he started school late. We're paying for him to learn to drive. He's a lovely boy and comes from a desperately poor family. His father died with a broken leg, and which wouldn't happen here in England, but he was taken to the village and a little bit of herbal medicine, and he died. And so his mother has got 8 children, and so desperately poor family. But he's just a lovely boy, and so I thought it might be nice for him to cut the ribbon. And but what we're doing at the moment is we're saving up for a minibus, and because at one time we used to hire about 3 big buses and take the children to the beach, and we always had plenty of help on that day, but really now, with too many children, we can't do that. And so I just had an idea one day, why don't we get a minibus, probably about 20-seater or something like that, and we can take the children out in small groups according to age and just have that one-on-one with them and give them a really nice time. So that's the project at the moment. So yeah.
And if I can just drop back a little bit, obviously, so I know officially not open, but it's open to the kids and you're supporting them. At any stage, now that because obviously when you highlighted this, you know, thanks to you guys, it was 40 plus orphanages got shut down, and then obviously rehomed the children. Then once you've got yours going now, you've had no issues or problem. You've got the full support of the government, if you like, to open one and continue and not have no problems. Because obviously you've upset the apple cart, haven't you, at some point? To shut all these. So
I think a lot of people know about what happened because it was all on the internet and the news.
Yes. Okay.
The social welfare in Amasaman, they said that they would love to do a documentary on us, because what we provide in Amasaman, they would love to do around the country, but obviously it takes money, and there's no money in social welfare in Ghana, unfortunately. The money comes from England. So, but we do get donations now from Ghanaians, which is amazing. A lady up the road who goes to a church up the road, she turned up one day with 50 chickens.
Oh, brilliant.
Live ones.
Yeah.
They've all been eaten. But it's nice now that we're getting donations from Ghanaians, because at the end of the day, it's their children. I mean, we love them. You know, they're my family. I have an English family and I have a Ghanaian family. And but it's nice now that Ghanaians are helping as well. So
is that the local tribes as well? They're helping you out? The local tribes in Ghana as well?
It's just local people that have found out about us. And a lot of people in Amasaman, they know about Koby Foundation. They know where to come when they're in trouble. So a lady turned up one day and she said her husband had been taken into hospital. He'd had an accident and she'd got small children with her. And she didn't have any money for a taxi to get to the hospital. And she obviously knew about us. Salah rang me and she said, "What shall I do? I don't know whether she's genuine." I said, "Salah, give her the taxi money to get to the hospital and then come back again and to go home again. Give them food, give them drinks, make sure the children have whatever they need, because you have to do the right thing. We always have to do the right thing. We're not responsible for anybody else." And I believe that she's telling the truth, and she was, and now we have her children. So And
if anybody or our viewers, anybody wants to donate anything, for example, what can you take over, as in food or medicine or children's supplies, nappies? Do you see what I mean? If they wanted to donate anything, what are you allowed to take over?
Yeah, fortunately we have there's a Ghanaian shipping company in Luton, and they have been wonderful to us over the years. They said we can ship 2 barrels a month, and we buy these big barrels, and they don't charge us anything.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And so I take an awful lot of porridge, because the porridge I buy in England I buy a nutritious one.
Yes.
Because that's what we're all about, is getting calories into the children and building them up so that they're not hungry when they go to school. And so porridge, I buy Calpol for the little ones, paracetamols, clothes, all kinds of things, toiletries. Some of the girls were asking for deodorants the last time I was there, because what they do is they put lime under their armpits.
Okay.
Yeah, or
sanitary towels.
Yeah, sanitary towels. What else?
Anything.
Emily?
I mean, you just think what a normal teenager or young child wants or needs, and it's the same over in Ghana, really.
Yeah.
Okay, I asked because obviously I know yourself, Marie, you take a lot of things with you, like I'm talking 10, 15 suitcases as you go. So I was just curious as to what they're allowed to take.
Yeah.
Because they can be funny at airports, can't they?
Yes.
So, and what they I appreciate the stuff that goes over delivery exported from you. That's different. You know, you could probably put anything. I
Yeah.
just thought things that you can take over, and you know, if our guests or viewers
Yeah.
wanted to donate things, what could they give?
Yeah, I always need children's clothes. British Airways are very, very good to me. We go through the charity part of British Airways and they give me extra bags.
Oh,
I think
brilliant.
at Christmas time we had 24 between us.
And they don't charge you for these.
They don't charge
That's
me
amazing,
for
that
them.
is.
They've been
That's
absolutely
brilliant.
amazing. Musical instruments. At the moment, some of the children are learning to play the piano.
Okay.
So I bought a keyboard and we took a guitar. Oh, you name it.
We've shipped
Yeah,
it.
if I can put it in a suitcase or in
It's
a
going.
barrel. Yeah.
Yeah.
And toys as well, little cars for the boys, and because things go missing.
Of course.
Yeah, and I don't blame the kids.
Yeah.
But colouring books and
Colouring
pencils,
books,
they
crayons,
just
they
love
love. I've had people collecting mega blocks for a long time,
Oh, yes.
and so the children are building all kinds of things with the mega blocks at the moment.
And when are you due to go over again? I know you've been recently. Have you got the next
Yeah.
trip planned, or?
Well, I'm hoping to
Not
go
yet.
in about 3 or 4 weeks. So
Oh, brilliant.
yeah,
Okay.
that's the plan. So yeah.
How often do you ship? Like when you ship through the, you're saying you do the
Yeah.
barrels and stuff. Is that a fixed time period or whenever you
no,
get?
we just turn up.
Yeah.
When Roger came to pick me up from the airport a couple of weeks ago, he'd put 2 barrels in the car.
Yeah.
And so on the way back from Heathrow, we dropped off at Luton to drop the barrels off.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So
Amazing.
yeah. Yeah, I have all kinds of requests. Oh, they wanted jelly the last time I was there. They said,
Oh, okay.
Auntie Marie, you haven't brought us any jelly for a long time.
Oh.
But where we were before, we had a job. We've got 2 fridges now, so we can make jelly. I can make jelly again for them. So
Oh, brilliant.
yeah.
And do you mind me asking then, so have you got things or systems in place for this to continue, your legacy ultimately, for this to carry on?
Yes.
Is there things in place?
There is, yes. Fortunately, I have 2 daughters. Yes, and Emily's got the same passion as me. Obviously, we need somebody else to help Salah, but that will be somebody
Over
that's
there,
Ghanaian. Yes, yeah. Yes, it will carry on. There's
Fantastic.
when I'm long gone, I still want Koby Foundation to be flourishing and taking children in all the time. And I just the passion of my heart is just to help as many children as we can. And I think because I grew up knowing about poverty, my dad was from Southern Ireland, one of 14 children. He had a terrible upbringing and terribly abused, not fed properly, and just had a terrible upbringing. And because I grew up knowing about poverty,
Yeah.
I think it sometimes puts something into you to want to help others. And
Yes.
and
how many? Sorry, go on. Sorry.
no, and I
Sorry,
just
go
love
first.
children.
And
as
how many
well.
people have you got? Because they're not technically staff, they're volunteers because they don't get paid, do they?
No.
They come and help. So how many have you got
Well,
at the moment?
The Salah that's paid as the manager, and then we've got another Salah. She does the breakfast and the lunches for the school children, but she also helps on a Wednesday and a Saturday as well. And she actually lives in the compound. We've got 2. We had 2 rooms built because I said to Salah, the manageress, I didn't want to be in there on her own because it was a big place to take care of, and I said you'll be lonely. So we built 2 rooms, one for the other Salah,
Yeah.
and one for Fatima.
Okay.
2 Muslim ladies, lovely ladies.
Beautiful.
Yes, doesn't matter what religion you are, we're all happy together. That's
Yes,
a
100%.
wonderful thing about Ghana is that the Muslim can live alongside the Christian or the Jew or whoever, and there's no problem at all. It's amazing. And Ghana's got lots of problems, but one thing they do have right, and that is living peacefully together.
Amongst each other.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
It's an amazing country for that. They've got much to teach us. But I have a few people that donate every month, and then my business support me, so I get a payment every 3 months, which helps me enormously. And sometimes we might get a gift, but I always... The good thing about it is I paid my own fare for about 10 years, and then my accountant for the business said because we didn't do much, we didn't do any travel really for the business, that they should pay my fare. Hatsfeld should pay my fare. So it's been nice for the last 4 years. I've not had to pay my own plane fare, because it's about £1,000 to get to Ghana.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not cheap.
So this year then, Emily, are you due to, when was the last time you went? Are you due to go back anytime soon? Or are you going for the anniversary?
Yeah, so I'll be going for the anniversary.
You was there at Christmas.
The last time I went was at Christmas.
Okay.
So I've been for the last 3 years now at Christmas time.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I think I struggled for a little while after Koby had died, and I felt once we had moved the children to other orphanages, I felt like I could come home and I had acted on what I had seen. And so I did feel at peace, you know. I think it took me a long time to sort of get my head around what I had gone through, but was just really, really proud of Mum for what she was doing and how she carried on. And so I think, yeah, when it comes to the time when Mum can't go anymore, I'll definitely then pick it up and carry on her work. But it's really nice now. I go back with my son. He's 8, and he's been with me the last 3 years, hasn't he?
Yes.
And he just absolutely loves it. You know, the children's centre is a beautiful centre, and you know, although there is a lot of poverty in Ghana, when you go to the centre, it's so nice to see the children being fed and just having somewhere to play. You know, they've got to work, they've got to go to school, and like Mum said, you know, the houses where they live are really, really poor, but it's just nice that they can come to the centre and be children.
Yeah. And is the anniversary event when you go back this time round, or will it be later on in the year when you go again? Because you go every 7 weeks, don't you?
So the anniversary, the celebration is going to be actually in June. We've fixed a date.
So the next trip you go back is the one for...
No, I'm going to go in between.
Oh, sorry, that's what I was trying to establish. Yes,
Oh,
so
yeah,
you've got one in between, and then the second trip
Yes,
as such
I
will
want,
be
I
there.
want to go soon. I've been looking at dates, so because
Okay.
obviously Salah and myself have got a lot to organise. But I could just remembered what I wanted to say. When we started, my husband used to work for a charity in Nottingham, and he asked one day what percentage was spent on administration. It was something like 80%, which was huge. And so when we started going to Ghana, we said we would always pay our own fare. And so we've continued to do that over all these years. So every penny, so if somebody gives me £1, it will definitely be spent on the children, because apart from paying for accountancy and for 2 wages, that's it. Obviously, I'm voluntary.
Yes.
You know, that's all we pay: accountancy and 2 wages for the 2 salars.
Of course, yeah.
And
well, that's how charity should be, though, really, ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fortunate to be able to do that. It's nice how everything has worked out, and I know a lot of people would love to do what I do, and this is why I say I'm so fortunate that I've been allowed to do it, because it's amazing what it does for you as a person, the joy it brings. You know, I mean, some days you think, I'm going home, I've had enough, when you haven't perhaps been treated very well, or it's hard. It's not easy working out there, but you don't. I'll never go home. I've never gone home early, or you just carry on, you know. Because at the end of the day, it's the children that are important. They're the ones they're the future, and they're such beautiful children. I don't think I bought some mirrored tiles that we're going to put up in the children's room, because I don't think they ever look at themselves. Probably never see themselves in a mirror. Well, the boys are so handsome, the girls are so beautiful. They don't see what we see, do they, Emily? They are really beautiful children, but they haven't got a clue what they look like. So that's another job when I go back, to put the tiles up. So yeah, and all the matting in the children's play area, that was shipped by Jobbico. So
because that's proper matting that you see in the parks, isn't it? The safety matting if children fall.
Everything that we do, we try and do well. You know, it's their place, and we've just extended the playgrounds. So what we'd love is a piece of land. We're hoping somebody might give us a piece of land so we can grow our own vegetables. We have vegetables growing all around the compound, but obviously we could do with a bigger area to farm, which would be amazing. So.
And add another skill in. And when you go over, Marie, do you stay at the compound yourself as well? So you don't go check in somewhere else. You go and stay alongside Salah and the kids.
I live with Salah. We share a room. Although we do have rooms for volunteers, and I could have my own bedroom, but I've been with her for such a long time that we still share a room. So yeah. And she's our adopted daughter. Not on paperwork, but in her heart. Yeah. She's 42 years of age, so so nice because for at the old place I just had a bucket and a cup, and that was my shower, and I learned how to wash my hair and wash my body with one bucket of cold water. Some days I'd perhaps boil the kettle and make it a little bit warmer, but when we got to the centre and to have hot water, it's amazing, isn't it now, compared to what we had, you know.
You literally started with a blank canvas, didn't you? And you've done it how you would live, naturally, heat, water, electric, etc. You've done it to where how you would live. And I like the fact, in fact I love the fact when you go, and not just that you stay there alongside them, but like you've just explained, you have the same type of baths and the same showers, and so just the way their life is,
just the same.
You live that, which I think is why you're more, I don't know, it's more
personal
close to you, personal to because you live that life to a certain degree, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I eat African food.
So you sit there, you eat alongside, you don't get a, envious like the teachers were of what they're doing. You get the same meals, you live the same life, and I find that amazing. I do.
It's brilliant.
I've eaten everything from chicken feet to... just thankful for everything, So as long as I can have a cup of tea and we've got milk, I'm happy.
I'm sure you must have thought about it. Like in your head, you must because obviously now you said you got 250 kids, something like that.
Is there might be a few more now? Actually, I need to add up again.
Yeah. Is there are you just gonna go for it, or doesn't matter? There's no number, or are you thinking like expansion, or?
I can't say no to anybody that comes, and so we still take children in, but I keep appealing for help.
Yeah.
And I say we have had a couple more ladies come, which is really good, but we still need more. So
we're definitely conscious of the fact that you can't be too big,
because
then how can you look after the children?
100%.
You can't be like the orphanage was, where there was just overcrowding and there wasn't enough food. So we're definitely conscious of that, but we'll definitely, hopefully more donations will come in and we'll be able to help more children. Is like what we said.
Well, what I've been thinking recently is to have another feeding day, to split the children up and maybe have the older ones one day.
Now. Oh, brilliant.
So that's what I'm thinking of at the moment. So Salah and I will talk about that, and we talk about everything and come to an agreement. So, but that's something that's really been on my heart. We need one more feeding day. So,
and I think as well, like some people say, why Ghana? Why don't you do something in England? Why are you helping over in Africa when you could help in your own country? But it's simply down to the fact that we went to Ghana and we saw the need in Ghana, and you meet people and you just can't turn your back on those children, all those people who are now young adults, and I think our hearts will always be in Ghana now.
Yeah, and the thing as well is I don't think there's any other charity in Amasaman. So how can I not?
Yeah.
How can I not work there?
That's an interesting
I have
fact.
to, yeah. I don't think there's anybody.
And here in England, you know, we do have a lot of charities. You know, you can pick up the phone if you think you're worried about a child, and you've got a great team of social workers and social services, whereas in Ghana there is nothing.
Non-existent.
No.
And, you know, those children are, you can't help where you're born. And,
Yes.
you know, they all deserve a chance like
We all do,
like
yeah,
we
100%.
do.
Yeah.
And again, I think that's why it's just so important that we keep doing our bit, and we enjoy doing it, don't we?
We do, yeah. Yeah, I always feel when I book my ticket, I always feel this little bit of excitement coming up, and I've never lost it.
Every time, wow.
No, even though it's not particularly...
You're not on
nice.
holiday ultimately.
I'm not on holiday, no.
Yeah.
No, and I really don't like the heat. You know, if ever we go on holiday somewhere hot, I'm always under the umbrella, and I've had to get used to it, and so I get up in the morning and I refuse to think about the heat, even though my clothes are sticking to me. I just don't think about it, because it's like a mind game. Once you think, oh, I'm hot,
you're going to start breaking mentally.
Yeah,
eventually.
you just have to
Then
try
you appreciate
and
that
ignore
cold
it.
shower at the end of the day.
Oh, yeah.
I think people like yourself aren't commended enough, where you're going from the comfort of being here, all the other comforts that you have, and then you're going to a country like Ghana, giving up your luxuries, and just living with these kids and helping them out. I think people like yourself need to be commended more. There's a lot of, I mean, you know yourself, people say the word charity these days, and most people are generous and they'll go give money without thinking or looking at the background of what you're actually giving money to. And I think people need to be more conscious of who they're actually donating to.
What they're doing.
And what they're donating for. Because charity these days, is a lot of people use it as a scam. It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
And legally as well, like there's a lot of loopholes. But I think my hat's off to you. Like for you leaving what you're doing here, the luxuries, and then going there, it's not easy.
You see, it doesn't interest me. If
Yeah.
somebody said, oh, you can have a designer handbag, it wouldn't interest me at all.
Yeah.
I'd sooner feed children. I'd sooner put a meal in front of a hungry child. That's what gives me pleasure.
Yeah.
So guys, if anybody wants to donate towards the Koby Foundation, details will be all on Instagram, YouTube and so on, or you can get in touch with us directly, and we can put you in touch with the Koby Foundation. But yeah, if there's anything you want to donate, money or items, things for kids, yeah, please give us a shout. Or even if you want to go over and volunteer, get in touch.
Yeah.
Why
Always
not?
need volunteers.
Always need volunteers. So yeah, yeah. And ladies, thank you so much for making the time. Thank you for coming
Thank
down.
you.
Thank you for sharing this event that happened in your lives. But yeah, no, it's you've definitely created a legacy, and it definitely continue, I'm sure, as you mentioned, Ree. But just thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
And like Naki says, it's people like yourselves that need to be commended. People don't get to see people like yourselves. They just see the front of whatever it is. So it's people like yourselves who put all the hard work in. So thank you very much for coming, and it's just amazing everything that you guys are doing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It is. It's amazing. Like when you told me that we've managed to pull, like you told me a little bit about your story, like the foundation. I was like, okay, this is gonna be interesting, because we haven't done an episode like this, and we didn't really plan an episode like this. That's why we've called it a special edition. But yeah, this is what we're about. You know, the real part is getting people like you guys on now, and hopefully, if we've got you on, maybe there's somebody else in a different country and they want to get their story across, and we can get
Yeah.
volunteers. We're all up for that. But yeah, thank you for giving us your time today, because I'm really excited to edit this and get it out there.
Oh,
And,
thank you. Yeah.
Hopefully get you guys some, more donations so you can help the
Yeah.
kids out there a bit more.
Okay, I want to be an electrician.
An electrician, a good trade.
I know how to play the instrument. I go to school from nursery all the way to university.
I'm offering computer hardware technology, and in the near future, I just want to become a computer engineer.
They helped me to be a fashion designer, and I'm happy to be a fashion designer so that I can also sew dresses for those who don't have.